All great leaders face obstacles. When National Education Association President Becky Pringle, Vice President Princess Moss, and Secretary-Treasurer Noel Candelaria took office, they entered a confluence of challenges of historic proportions. An economy where the gap between rich and poor is growing at an alarming rate. A justice system that turns a blind eye to Black and brown people being killed in front of an entire nation of witnesses. And a pandemic that is taking lives and devastating families and our most vulnerable communities. Because of COVID-19, you haven't seen them in person. Like most of you, Becky, Princess, and Noel have been hard at work at home. Armed with a webcam and Wi-Fi, they remain steadfast in the face of adversity, advocating for great public schools and demanding the resources students need to succeed, proving they are more than equal to the challenges of the day. They are the right leaders at the right time. President Becky Pringle started her journey as a middle school science teacher in Pennsylvania and worked as an education activist at local and state levels. Her union member parents exposed her to the power of organizing early on. So, it was no surprise when she answered the call to action when her son's kindergarten class ballooned to an unmanageable size. And she's been fighting for students and educators ever since. Now, like many of you, she spends much of her time at home with family. With grandchildren attending virtual school, she sees how educators have gone above and beyond to serve students during the pandemic. And that knowledge fuels her focus on the issues, demanding the resources schools need to reopen safely and equitable funding for schools to serve students in a post-pandemic world. NEA Vice President Princess Moss grew up in rural Virginia. She brings experience as an elementary school music teacher and a proud family tradition of serving public school students. The daughter of 2 school bus drivers, Princess learned that every educator in the life of a student matters, and that putting students on the road to success requires social and emotional intelligence that doesn't ignore any part of students' lives or experiences. That is why she has called for suspending unjust standardized tests at a time when students need more compassion after a year of suffering and loss rather than further stress. NEA Secretary-Treasurer Noel Candelaria hails from the big state of Texas and is no stranger to big challenges. The son of Mexican immigrants, he is a proud product of public schools and a high school special education teacher. Working at home with his daughter attending virtual school, he's experienced firsthand the stresses that educators and students are battling, motivated by his belief in the transformational power of education. He fights every day for the fair treatment of all students, Black and brown, Native and newcomers. During the pandemic, he continues to urge collective action to dismantle the institutional racism that harms so many, including putting the most at-risk students on the school-to-prison pipeline fast track. Even in this extraordinarily challenging period, Becky, Princess, and Noel continue to speak up, stand up, and show up for students and educators. They continue to keep the pressure on those who deliberately stand in the way of policies that promote equitable learning for all. They continue to stand up to the powerful special interests who would put students and educators at risk by having them return to schools before adequate safety measures are implemented. And knowing that we can't afford a return to normal, they fight for funding that addresses the inequities laid bare during the pandemic so that every student succeeds. They are here to serve with all the compassion, creativity, and ingenuity that this moment in history requires. They are, indeed, the right leaders at the right time.